do this every fucking year. Fucking shit. Let's get started. Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to my top 20 worst movies of 2015. That's right, I'm here. I'm going to talk about some shit. Let me tell you, last year was pretty damn good for movies if you consider, all the good movies. But if you consider all the bad movies, I guess it was a fucking shitty year. So you know what? Let's get into this, because I have 20 movies to talk about. That's right, I'm going way beyond. I could do 10, but when I was calculating all the movies, I was like, damn, I have like 22 movies here. Fuck it, let's do 20. And don't think I shoehorned in movies. Oh, no. Some of these movies, well, actually, all of these movies are pretty damn awful. A few of them, I will admit, are movies that I did find some pleasure in, but they still are terrible films. So, let's get straight into it. No honorable mentions, really. Let's get straight into it. Let's do it. Number 20. Okay, so my number 20, usually I like to save the first couple of spots for movies that are bad, but I still enjoyed. But I actually have a few movies that I enjoyed last year that are bad movies, really bad. Some of them really god-awful, but end up really being funny in retrospect, or just was funny the first time I saw it. And number 20 is certainly that. This movie is Hitman, Agent 47. Hitman is a series that is a video game, obviously, a video game series that I really enjoy. But the stories themselves and even some of the characterizations are really bad. Really funny, B-movie style, but bad nonetheless. So it could make a really fun B-movie, and that's kind of what this is. It is kind of a B-movie. There's so many dumb scenes. Hell, there's a whole scene in this film where Hitman has to train someone, and it might as well be a tutorial level in a video game. It's actually that stupid. It really is. It's really, really dumb. There's so many just scenes where it's just action for whatever reason. There's blood and all of it's like CG and it's really bad. But it ended up being a really fun movie. Bad, poorly done at most of the time. Written, oh man, the writing is so bad. Some of the acting's not very good either. And the main villain is laughably dumb. Like when you find out what his ability is, it's so dumb. And then the ending too, really trying to tie it with the video games. It's so laughably bad, but it is laughably bad, so it ends up being entertaining. So Hitman Agent 47, while it is a bad film and it definitely deserves to be on this list, is an entertaining movie, and I actually do recommend watching it. So yeah, great way to start it off. Top 20 worst movies, I'm recommending the first one. So yeah, Hitman Agent 47, terrible. But I recommend it if you want to have a laugh, and if you like the video games. You'll actually see some little references here and there, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's kind of Hitman-esque, so maybe you'll enjoy it. So there you go. Hitman Agent 47 is my number 20. Now, my number 19, speaking of laughably bad, is The Last Witch Hunter, starring Vin Diesel, trying to start a brand new franchise that's based on his RPG, like his Dungeons and Dragons character, which already made me really fall in love with this movie. Going into this, I was not expecting anything. I wasn't expecting a good movie at all. And when I went in there, it isn't, but it's very similar to how Hitman was, which it's a bad film, so poorly done and so poorly paced. I realize this, and there's things that just happen, it just happens because I feel like Vin Diesel, he was like, hey, yo, I want a part where I get to say level 16 warlock, but there's no warlocks in the movie because we don't have the budget for that, but I want to say that because it's very Dungeons and Dragons. And I guess the director's like, I don't care, fine, fuck it. I don't care, Vin, whatever, shit. So they did it, and there's so many scenes that just feel out of place, and it's just there to kind of set up some mythology that just doesn't really make much sense. There's so many things in this movie that just feel thrown in just to be like, yeah, we have kind of a mythology. There's a whole scene where they have to judge someone, and a tree thing comes out of nowhere and punishes this guy, and it's like, what the fuck, where'd that come from? And they don't never explain it. There's a lot of stuff like that, but I found it really funny too. I found it really entertaining at times, but not in a good way. The action scenes are very, very dark at times. Like, you can't, I don't mean dark like material wise, I mean like dark, you can't tell what the hell's going on. The whole last action scene is ridiculous and really bad. It's supposed to be like one of those time things, like, oh, we have to do this before she wipes out an entire New York City or whatever. And it's so dumb. It's a bad movie. Again, it's fun to laugh at, but it's a horrible film. The Last Witch Hunter is definitely a dud when it comes to a brand new franchise for Vin Diesel. It bombed big time, and you ain't gonna be seeing any more of this this main character. But Vin Diesel was actually energetic in it, which I haven't seen him be charismatic or energetic in a little while. So at least we had that. So anyway, there you go. The Last Witch Hunter is number 19. Okay, so now we're leaving the funny bad and we're just getting into the bad. Number 18 is The Woman in Black 2. Now, when I first reviewed this, I didn't actually mind it. I gave it like a 20 or something, which is like a 5 out of 10. Not a terrible score, it's average. But when I thought about it more and more, I'm just like, you know what? That movie wasn't scary at all. And I think my main thing was that the characters were okay and the acting was fine. But you know what? The movie was so unscary and unatmospheric and not creepy at all. And the movie is called The Woman in Black 2. It's a sequel to, of course, The Woman in Black, which was a pretty damn good movie. You would expect more Woman in Black. And in this movie, you see her for approximately 2 minutes. Maybe 3. It's just like, it's supposed to be like kind of like Children of the Corn-esque a little bit, which I have another movie that's Children of the Corn-esque, which didn't work at all, which I'll be talking about in a second. But this movie, it just didn't work like that. It didn't work at all, and especially since it wasn't rated R, so when it got into some of the grim aspects, it was just not, it didn't do it in a very like creepy and disturbing way. So even when it wasn't being scary, when it was trying to do grim stuff, like, oh, kids get killed or something like that, it was just like, oh, there's a body on the ground, I don't care, who cares? Like, it was filmed well for the most part, but it was really boring, and the ending itself was just so blah, and there's a whole thing about it being set in, like, what, World War II, and it really doesn't come into fruition at all. It's set in World War II. Why? It's because, I don't know. And that's about it. It really is a boring movie. I just remember thinking, oh my god, there's nothing exciting about this. I wasn't excited at all or creeped out or I was just bored. I was just sitting there like, Jesus, this is such a straight-to-DVD style sequel. I mean, it could have been, except that it was filmed well. That was about it. Yeah, the filming was well. I mean, the filming was well. The filming was pretty well done, and the acting was okay, but besides that, it was so boring. It really was. So that's why it earns a spot on my my top 20 as number 18. The Woman in Black 2. Very disappointed. Okay, alright. Speaking of Children of the Corn, number 17 is Sinister 2. Talk about disappointing horror sequels. Oh man, Sinister 1 was so freaking good. It was one of my favorite horror movies of that year. Maybe my favorite horror movie of that year. I can't remember any other horror movies that year that I thought were really effective. That movie was so good. Great characters. Writing was excellent. Very, very funny at times, but very creepy. Very atmospheric. Did a great job of using that I guess ghost, I guess you'd call him, but ghoul. I thought he was really creepy in that movie. And they do such a good job with the jump scares too. Jump scares are something that I get a little bit sick and tired of in movies, but in that movie they were effective and they didn't use them too much. Most of it was just being creepy, atmospheric, and just setting up a very, very, very just dense feeling of dread. It was so well done, and this movie just shits all over. It says, screw it, just put jump scares, I don't care. And instead of writing that's adequate at best, pretty bad child actors, which we focus on most of the time, and let's just, screw it, let's kind of tie it in with Sinister 1 by adding the sheriff or the deputy from the last one, which is probably the only really good thing in this, is the deputy, I can't remember his name, James Ransom, I just remembered it, and Shannon Sussman, who I haven't seen in a long time. Their relationship and their characters are the best parts of this film. There's so many really dumb plot points, like the whole abusive father thing, which we just saw in not the abusive husband, which we actually just saw in The Boy that came out last month. So you can see that's already getting contrived. And so many dumb plot points about like the brothers not liking each other or whatever because Bagul is treating the other ones like, you know, family or whatever the fuck. It was so bad, and it wasn't even filmed like creepily. Like it didn't even make a regular house scary like the last one did. The last one, it was just a regular house, but they managed to make it so creepy. And the found footage aspect, like in the first one was so disturbing. This one, they make rats eat people's bellies. That's it. I was like, come on. And shitty special effects with like some crocodiles. I remember that. I was like, wow. Holy crap. These are not scary. Not even that bloody. So you can't even say that. And it was just like, it was such a meh sequel. So blah. And not even meh. It was bad. It was a bad sequel. So Sinister 2 had a couple of decent things, but most of it was just so disappointing. Yeah, Sinister 2. Not good. Not bueno. Now, number 16 is a movie that had some decent stuff in it. But overall, it was a boring mess. And that is Jupiter Ascending, which of course was from the Wachowskis. It's their latest complete bomb and utter failure, both critically and box office wise, financially. And it's a movie that really just blows my mind on how it got made. It cost $180 million. I don't know how they raised that money, especially after Cloud Atlas and hell, even Speed Racer. Like, those movies bombed big time and they have big budgets. How the hell did they get a budget this big for something so insane and, dare I say it, boring as fuck? This movie, when I reviewed it, I was like, yeah, it's alright. I think I said the same thing with Woman in Black, where I was like, yeah, it's good, some of the acting's alright, it's fine. I gave it like a 5 out of 10, or, 20 out of 40, which is what I give movies. So I was like, yeah, it's alright, it's okay. But you know what? It was so, like, just thinking back on it, I'm just like, you know what? I was more bored in that theater than in The Woman in Black and in Seventh Son, which came out the same weekend and was, like, technically worse, but it was so much more entertaining. Like, the actors gave a damn, which most of these actors didn't. Mila Kunis was a freaking block of wood in this movie. She was so boring. The dialogue was laughably bad. There's times where, even though the visuals are gorgeous, and the space scenes and some of the costume design, all that stuff are just so well done. It's just, of course they should be. It's a $180 million budget. Even though they look visually striking, it's not like they were like, oh, this is like game-changing. It's not like Gravity or somewhere. It's like, wow, they use special effects to tell a story. No, they had special effects so that you wouldn't notice that the story was so awful. But guess what? I noticed, and everybody else did. The story was so bad, so dumb, and even contrived at times. Like, the characters were completely forgettable. The dialogue was so bad, but not only bad, but there was so much of it. There was so much of just people sitting around talking. It was just so boring. And even when I got to the action, it wasn't very well done. There were some really dumb, silly moments that did make me laugh, I will admit, but it was so boring for the most part that I have to tell you, it's a bad movie, and it's one of their biggest misfires. I even liked Speed Racer, and I loved Cloud Atlas, so this is probably their biggest misfire yet, and hopefully their next movie will be lower budget, and they go back to telling good stories, or at least decent stories. This is not one of them. So there you go. Jupiter Ascending is my number 16. Oh, boy. Number 15 is Pixels. Yeah, Pixels. The movie that could have been if Adam Sandler didn't decide to put his fucking greedy hands over it. Pixels was such a good short film. I remember watching that back in like 2000, what was like 8 or 9 or something. I was like, wow, this is awesome. It was like 3 minutes long, and it ended in such a great way where the world just gets pixelated and turns into one giant pixel. It was so good. And when I heard there was a movie coming out, I was like, okay, that could be cool. And then I heard Adam Sandler, I was like, fuck. But maybe it could be decent. The trailers came out and they were okay. I was like, all right, this could be something. This could be at least decent. And it ended up being extremely annoying. Like wildly unfunny. Oh, like holy shit, so unfunny and really offensive. Like there's a whole thing where they make a woman a trophy, and then she something happens with her, and then she gets and then freaking what's his name? Not Dig Dug. What the fuck's his name? Cubert turns into her or something. I was just like, what the. It was so bad. The characters are stereotypes. You got Josh Gad, who isn't just like the fat funny guy. He's not the Kevin James in the movie, because Kevin James is also in it. Josh Gad's like the crazy kind of gay character and stuff. You got Peter Dinklage, who's embarrassing himself. Probably the best part of the movie is Peter Dinklage, but he's still embarrassed himself. Adam Sandler is bored throughout the entire film, and just there's nothing to the film that is really good besides the special effects. That's the only thing that, I wouldn't even say saves it, but makes it not higher on this list. Because when it gets to the pixel, like the actual pixel characters and stuff, it's actually really entertaining. Especially there's a whole Pac-Man sequence, even though there's a whole thing about the cheat code in there, which is like so mind-numbingly retarded. I couldn't believe it. I was like, you gotta be kidding. Even my mom knows that there's no, that doesn't even work. It's real life. How does a fucking cheat code work in real life? Okay, whatever. Anyway, the whole Pac-Man sequence was actually a little bit entertaining. Even the centipede sequence was fun. And then even the end sequence, seeing all the little pixel characters, like you see Paperboy and stuff like that. I thought that was entertaining. You see Frogger bounce around. There's some decent sight gags, even though a couple of them are actually from the original Pixels short film. That do still work in this. At least you had that, but everything else. Adam Sandler might as well be a hunk of wood in this. Kevin James wasn't even that bad. He was just there, really. So I can't even give him that much shit, even though I don't really care for him. I'll give him shit later, though. You can believe that. So yeah, Pixels is just a bad film that could have had the potential to be something good, but Adam Sandler had to say, you know what, we can make a fun little movie here, I guess, or, you know, fuck fun, let's just make a movie and get paid. That's what he cares about. That's what Adam Sandler gives a shit about now. He doesn't care about actually making you laugh. He just wants money. That's all he wants. And he thought this one, you know, $80 million, people will flock to see it because it's about video games and it's a big special effects heavy thing, and we're in it, so they're going to really flock to it. And we didn't. I mean, it still made a lot of money, but we didn't. So anyway, there you go. My number 15 is Pixels. So where Pixels had the special effects and no humor, number 14 had neither. And that is Hot Tub Time Machine 2. Yeah, you remember this movie? Remember the first one? Yeah, really funny. Great White Buffalo. I love that movie. Really do. I love Hot Tub Time Machine 2. John Cusack was great. Of course, Rob Corddry. I love that man. And Craig Robinson, I love too. I love all these actors. And when they came back together, I was like, yes. And then, of course, John Cusack didn't show up. I was like, oh. And then the trailer came out. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of funny. Then the movie came out. I was like, why was this year so bad with movies that got sequels? And the sequels ended up being dog shit, but the first one was great. Like, friggin' Woman in Black, Sinister, now this. Man, this movie was such a huge disappointment. It was not funny pretty much at all, and it was actually really baffling when it comes to the story, because you could tell them trying to do something here where they actually are going into the future, but they don't have the budget to really make it look all futuristic, so they do their best with the very, very small budget they have, but there's no real good sight gags in the movie. There's a lot of really, really recycled ones, like, you know, the typical dick jokes, fart jokes, ass raping jokes, like, just stuff that is like, oh, immature and R-rated just to be R-rated and make you go, whoa, oh, I don't see that in movies too much. Wow, oh, he got butt raped. What? That's funny. Like, that's all this is. And they had to drag poor Adam Scott in here. Oh, man. That made me really upset. I was like, come on. John Cusack does straight-to-DVD bullshit. Adam Scott still does good shit. Don't drag him into this pile of shit. It was such a bad movie. I don't really have much to say about this one because it's been a very long time since I saw it. And really, it just went in one ear, or I guess went in my eyes, and then out my brain. I don't know. Does that make sense? No. Does that make sense? No. I don't know what I was talking to. Anyway, yeah, this movie sucked. I don't have much else to say about Hot Tub Time Machine 2. It was just a disappointment, and it was depressing again. So that's probably why I got a little bit higher over like Pixels and stuff like that, because it really was a movie that could have been, and you could see where they tried, but it just wasn't funny, and it was really, really baffling on how inept it really ended up being. And it's the same director as the first one, so I was really hoping it would end up being funny. And this one was just depressing. I can't even go like bang on my chair and get angry. I can't. This one's just like fucking depressing. So anyway, that's number 14. Alright, so now let's get a little bit more energetic and talk about a movie I wasn't looking forward to at all. It looked generic as all hell, just as generic as its title. Number 13 is The Gunman, starring Sean Penn, that rat fuck. I know you ratted out on El Chopo. I'm going to find out, or El Chapo, or whatever. You ratted on him. I know you did. I ain't going to do anything about it, but you did it. I know it. I know it. So anyway, The Gunman was a movie you probably don't remember because you shouldn't, because it was a shitty movie. It's a movie that wanted to show off how buff Sean Penn can get. I mean, Sean Penn's in his 50s now, maybe 60s, I don't even know. But he's old, so they wanted to show how buff he can get. And admittedly, he was a really buff dude in this. He did work out, he did commit. And he was okay in the movie, but that's the only okay thing in this movie. All the action is just so bland and so generic. Most of it just ends up being like shootouts, but not like energetic or fun ones. It's just like bang, 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 some blood here and there, whatever. There's one scene where he cuts someone with a machete, and I'm like, oh, that was fun. That was it, though. And then I was like, oh, there's a whole scene where he booby traps a house, and it should be more entertaining than it is. It's just a bland movie that ends up just telling a really bad story with characters I do not like at all. And some really laughably bad dialogue. It ends up just being a movie that's so forgettable. It actually almost becomes offensive how just uninspired the movie is. It really, the end scene, you are expecting like the big final action scene is going to be like this badass thing, you know. I mean, it's generic to expect that, but you expect it, especially from a thing called, a movie called The Gunman. It's called The Gunman. Generic title, but you should expect some like a shootout or something. In this movie, it ends with Sean Penn and his girlfriend like trying to find the bad guy in a bullfighting arena. In an arena like with bulls in like the background, like in the I guess the back where the bulls are, not in the actual arena, but they're like in the I guess the backstage, I don't know. And it's like embarrassing. Like I'm like, what the like, it's called The Gunman. You're gonna end up with just like them tracking down a guy and then he gets shot and that's it. Wow, I was really expecting like at least a couple of explosions or something, but that's it. It just ends like with a pitter, and you don't care about any of the characters. You don't give a shit where and who or what will happen, who will die. You don't care. You know, there's a character death halfway through the movie. I'm like, I don't care. Cool. At least I got to see some blood. That's about it. I'm like, oh yeah, he got shot in the head. Yeah, graphic. It was just a nothing of a movie. So yeah, The Gunman is number 13. Now we're going back to comedies here with number 12, which is Unfinished Business. Do you remember this movie? Well, guess what? It's another Vince Vaughn bomb. And guess what? It's another unfunny Vince Vaughn bomb. And guess what? He dragged down freaking Dave Franco, Nick Frost, and Tom Wilkinson with him with a completely unfunny, just gross out comedy that really did not work one bit, really. It's a movie that I can't even remember what I liked about it. I had to have liked one or two things about it because I gave it like a 12 out of 40, which is not good, but I had to at least like something, but I can't remember what. So this movie really is probably the most unfunny R-rated comedy I've seen last year, which I guess means it's not as good as Hot Tub Time Machine 2, I guess that means. So that's why this is number 12 and that was number 14. This movie was, like I said with The Gunman, very uninspired. It was just like, hey, let's make, you know, gross out jokes. The story itself isn't even interesting. It's not even like a unique premise. It's like, this guy wants to start his own business. Okay, so he goes and makes dick jokes. And somehow that works. It's so bad. The characters are really unlikable. Dave Franco plays this kind of mentally retarded character that's really offensive. Admittedly, he was the funniest thing about the movie. I do remember that, so there you go. There's a positive. But he was also very offensive. He reminded me of like Nick Swartzen's character from A Haunted House, which his character was, he was gay. That was it. He was just gay. That was his character. And that was the same thing with Dave Franco. He was just kind of retarded. So he would say things, you know, retardedly, I guess. So yeah, that's the humor behind the movie. There's, again, just like in Hot Tub Time Machine 2, there's ass raping jokes. There's dick jokes. There's a whole scene where just dicks flop out of like glory holes. I'm just like, oh, good dicks. Oh, Dave Franco fell and face planted right onto a dick. I mean, I guess if you're 5 or retarded or dumb or stupid or I don't know, not expecting much from a movie, I guess you'll laugh. I don't know. I don't care. Screw you. If you liked it, I don't care. Screw you. I hate you. But anyway, I'm very bipolar. But anyway, yeah, I didn't like it. Unfinished Business, not a good film. Not funny. 12 out of a 40. And it's also number 12 in my top 20. So anyway, there you go. Unfinished Business. So now we get into number 11. Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. The final Paranormal Activity movie ever. And thank the freak God, because man, this one sucked the big one. And this is the thing about this. I am actually a fan of the Paranormal Activity movies. I really am. I love the first one. Really like the second one. Third one's actually my favorite because they actually introduced characters that were really likable, especially the main character, who I found to be really, really funny and really, really likable and relatable. I love that character. Fourth one, I enjoyed that the first time I saw it, but then I saw it again. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. A couple decent characters, but I was like, okay, it's not very good. Fifth one, which was the marked ones, really liked that one. Back to basics, I guess. Well, not even back to basics. It was actually very different from all the Paranormal Activity movies before it, but back to being fun, I guess, or entertaining. And now we get this one, which was a pile of shit. Characters that were unlikable. The story itself was trying to wrap itself up in the most just horrendous way. It was trying to tie up loose ends, but it didn't tie up almost any loose ends. Like, what the fuck happened to Katie? What happened to the baby? What happened to the cult? The witch cult? Like, it didn't answer any of these questions. It was just like, yeah, remember the Toby ghost? Yeah, I guess we'll kind of answer that, but not really. That's it. But what happened to all the characters? We saw Katie in pretty much all of the past movies. She's not in this. We don't get any like confirmation about what happened to her. We don't. So if you cared about the story or characters or the overarching plot of the last 5 movies, you're not getting shit from this one. You really aren't. You get the Toby ghost at the end, and it's such a disappointing, terrible conclusion that really made me hate the rest of the film. Even though I would even say some of the characters were likable in this, and there's a couple of funny moments here and there, but for the most part, the ending really dragged it down for me and made me hate this movie. Really pissed me off. The Ghost Dimension is the laziest of the movies, in my opinion. It has shitty special effects. They look like the ghost looks like hot syrup. Like it's just a movie that they were like, screw it. Let's make this a little bit bigger budgeted and make it the final one. See if it makes any money. And we'll be done. Kind of like what Saw 3D did. The last Saw, where Saw 6 did so bad, and they're like, Saw 3D, we'll make it a little bit more expensive, we'll add 3D, and then we're done. And that one did okay, and they're like, okay, we're done. So this is the same thing. So, no more Paranormal Activity, and we don't even get a conclusion, a satisfying conclusion. Hell, even Saw 3D had a okay conclusion that wrapped up some stuff. This one, no, we don't. So I was pissed. So anyway, there you go. That's my number 11. Should probably be higher, but there's some other shit I have to talk about.